BBC News.
Well, with me now in the studio is Mohamed Taha from BBC Arabic. Just tell me what Israel is saying about why it's doing what it's doing against Hezbollah at the moment.
So Israel announced a few days ago, after a security meeting of Israel headed by the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, that one of the aims of the war is making sure the people who are living in northern Israel to return to live back in their home, to return back to their homes. And the strategy, as always, of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of achieving targets by escalating the military pressures on their enemies. So the aim now is to push Hezbollah more and to try as much as Israel can to eliminate some of Hezbollah capabilities to allow these people to return back to their homes in Israel. We didn't see much sign of that so far. So we saw the attacks of the pager attacks of Israel in lots of parts of Lebanon, and the walkie-talkie attacks, then targeting the leaders in the southern suburb of Beirut, which is the stronghold of Hezbollah. But we saw overnight a new use of Hezbollah for a new missiles, which is called Fadi 1 and Fadi 2, a long-range missiles that hit, as you rightly said, Haifa and the military airport there, that caused that some schools in Haifa announced that they will shut today and they will not open. So,
and Israel now telling people to stay indoors, aren't they, in northern Israel?
Yes. So now the short-term effect of this and the medium term, that it is causing people, more people to leave northern Israel, not to return people to northern Israel. But as the military did in Gaza before, they managed after many months to push back the Hamas militants from many of them from northern Gaza, and they pushed them to Rafah and to Khan Yunis and the southern parts of Gaza. But and we can see effect of eliminating some of Hamas capabilities of throwing missiles towards Israel. So Benjamin Netanyahu is trying to do the same in the north, to try to eliminate their capabilities. But there is massive fear in the region that will be an all-out war between Hezbollah and Israel, as we saw in 2006, and that will cause lots of casualties between the civilians from both sides.
Okay, thank you very much, Mohamed Taha. Let's stay on that point and bring in Ori Goldberg. We can speak to him live now from Tel Aviv. Hello to you, Israeli political analyst and former university professor who's written extensively on Iran, Israel and the relationship between religion and politics in the Middle East. Hello to you. I mean, this is the real question, isn't it, about where this is leading. We've seen this attack overnight from Hezbollah on this airbase. What are you expecting from Hezbollah in terms of its response now?
Hezbollah has been actually quite consistent and has done exactly what it said it would do throughout the duration of this year since October 7th. Hezbollah is playing tit for tat with Israel. It escalates when Israel escalates, and when it does that, it stymies what your colleague just said about Israeli strategy of escalating to de-escalate. So I expect the exchange to last for at least a day to several days. I don't think Israel has what it takes to actually start the war that would bring, quote unquote, certainty to the residents of the Israeli north. That war, by the way, would have to include a ground invasion. Bombing from the air is not considered sufficient according to these Israeli standards of escalating to de-escalate.
And I suppose the question is also what role you expect Iran to be playing in this.
I doubt Iran will be quick to join the fight. I think, again, both Iran and Hezbollah have demonstrated real restraint over the past year. Israel has been by far the greater aggressor, both in terms of quantity and also in terms of quality targets. I think both Iran and Hezbollah have a great deal to gain from keeping this as contained as possible, because starting an all-out war, and in the case of Hezbollah and Iran, that would mean firing a serious barrage, a serious salvo on the Israeli heartland. Starting a war would allow Israel to go on an unprecedented rampage, but not starting a war makes Israel look like the aggressor, like the violent party, whereas both Hezbollah and Iran are seen as parties trying their best to contain the situation, limit damages and casualties as far as that can be held. And it seems like that's holding for both Shia parties. It is to their great benefit not to succumb to Israeli pressure and start a war. And I think that's a really important point. Israel may want a war, but it doesn't want to start it. It doesn't want to launch a ground invasion. It wants a first strike from either Hezbollah or Iran that would allow Israeli leaders to present this war as inevitable, as a war of no choice. And so far, Hezbollah is adamantly not giving them the opportunity.
And as Mohamed was just saying, in terms of the how well supplied Hezbollah is, we were hearing about them having these long-range missiles. They are, in comparison to Hamas, for example, so much better armed, aren't they? Just explain a bit about that.
Oh, very much so. Hezbollah is on a completely different level of magnitude in terms of both supplies and arms and discipline. Hezbollah is a professional army. Israel knows this. Israel also knows how poorly it is doing in Gaza. The reason Israel wants this war so desperately is both to return these Israeli citizens home, but also, I think, much more profoundly in terms of the Israeli system, to distract attention from the abysmal failure in Gaza. Israel had two goals for the Gaza war. One was to return the hostages, and the other was to eliminate Hamas. Neither have been met, and they have not been met spectacularly.
Okay.
The war in Lebanon is an attempt to up the ante in a kind of a double or nothing desperation move.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for talking to us. Ori Goldberg there, joining us live from Tel Aviv.